Yes, I am going to rank T.I.'s catalog because I've actually gone back and listened to a lot of T.I.'s catalog. And I still listen to T.I.'s catalog regardless, even before this 50, and T.I. thing. But what's been interesting about that, and I just kind of want to go on a little talking rant here, is, it's been interesting to see how people have changed history when it comes to certain moments in rappers' careers, right? Because I was young when a lot of this, like when 50 was on top from 2000, you can say 2002 even, because he was literally touring off of mixtapes. So you can say from 2002 to 2007, a 6-year run. From 2002 I was 7 years old. 2003 I was 8. So like I was a very young kid. I really wasn't like that focused on 50 Cent and any artist, period. But I started really getting deep into hip hop in 2005, and I was 10 years old at the time. So I still didn't like fully understand. I wasn't outside and hearing all this music and all this stuff, right? But there are things that I remember as a kid. And even what's hilarious is even when I went to, elementary school and then middle school and then high school, even in elementary school, I just remember, I believe this was the 4th grade. I went to Harrison Elementary School in Iowa. In Harrison Elementary School, which that school doesn't exist anymore. I believe they broke the whole building, which is sad because that's, majority of my elementary was there. But they in Harrison Elementary, they had 4th and 5th grade together. So each like it was weird. Most schools didn't have that, but 4th graders and 5th graders were in the same class. They would have like a split. And I remember one of my friends who at the time was like the coolest kid in school. I wanted to be like him. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. He had the G-Unit sneakers. I was jealous of. I didn't have those. He just had those, like, you remember those sneakers where you would have the roll under them, like where you can skate kind of under them. It would just be like I think they're called etnies or something like that. And you could it would be rollers under the shoes, and you could, I don't know if you guys remember, if you're around that age when that was popular. He just had the coolest shit. The girls there liked him. Me, and I'm not even joking, the girls liked me, but I just was too naive to even, I was too much of a good kid, is what I'm saying. Like, I never really got involved in a lot of bad things. I did some bad things here and there, like steal at a store because I was hanging around the wrong kids, but I never really got involved into any of the shit that other people got involved to. I got into some fights, never sold any type of drugs, even though I was surrounded by some people that did. Never did any drugs, never went to parties like that. I just never found any of that shit interesting. And by the time I was 12, 13, I was building a business and I was focused on hip hop and just loved hip hop. So that kind of got me away from all that bullshit, because I probably would have followed a lot of different bad paths if I didn't have a super passionate thing that I was, passionate about. But I'm saying all this to say, I remember in elementary that, 50 was the hottest thing. Like, everybody was, and I remember us as kids, talking about Candy Shop and, thinking it's actually about candy when it's not. And, just stuff like this where, if the kids in elementary knew, and I was there, I was living it, I was in America. And this is, mind you, this is in Iowa. This ain't even in New York, where I'm sure it was 10 times more. This is in the middle of fucking nowhere in America. This is Iowa. This is not the mecca of hip hop. This has really nothing hip hop related. So if that was popping there, if that artist like 50 was popping there, then clearly that was a huge artist. I mean, people just have this revisionist history, and they try to say oh, it doesn't matter. All 50 had was Run, and one good album, and the rest he flopped, and the shit was trash, and blah blah blah. And then they do the same thing with T.I. I've seen the same thing with Lil Wayne. T.I., I remember from 2006 to 2008, he was on a run. And Paper Trail, which I actually looked up recently, and I didn't even know this. I just found this out recently. And T.I. mentioned it in that interview, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, where he's on Ebro, Laura, and Rosenberg's show, the show that they created after they left Hot 97. And on that show, he says, Paper Trail was a unique situation because he had Whatever You Like go to number 1 in the charts, and then he had Live Your Life with Rihanna go number 1. So he knocked himself out of the number 1 spot to replace himself, basically. And in that interview, he said he was the first rapper to do that. But based on my research, it was actually Ja Rule. But Ja Rule, it was a Jennifer Lopez record. I forget the title, man. But Always on Time was number 1. And then a Jennifer Lopez record, I think I'm Real or something like that, replaced that Always on Time record. So it's technically Ja Rule replaced himself, but it wasn't his song. It was Jennifer Lopez featuring Ja Rule. So maybe T.I. meant, it was him as an artist. But then I looked into it more and I found out Nelly actually replaced himself in the number one spot. He had Dilemma with Kelly Rowland, and that's his record. That's Nelly's record. Hot in Here replaced that song. So he wasn't the first to do it. It was Ja Rule. And if you don't count Ja Rule because the second record isn't officially his, he's not the lead, then it's Nelly that did it. And it's funny is Nelly and Ja Rule did it in the same year as 2002. Ja Rule did it in March 2002. Nelly did it in September of 2002, October. So I looked that up because I was just interested. That was an interesting fact. And through that, I found out that T.I.'s paper trail legitimately had insane amount of hits. You have Whatever You Like reach number one. You had Live Your Life with Rihanna reach number one. So already 2 number one hits on the album. You had Dead and Gone with Justin Timberlake reach number 2. And then you had Swagger Like Us reach number 5. So he had 4, I kid you not, 4 songs that were in the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is insane. That's insane. There's not many albums you can name that had 4 songs in the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's how scorching hot T.I. was at the time. And yet people like to have this revisionist history and act like he didn't have a run. The guy after, 24s and all that with trap music and urban legend, he was reaching that level, but he himself said it, and I agree with this, is in 2006 when he dropped the King album, and What You Know About That reached number 1 for the first time. That was his first number 1 record. He was all over, man. I heard him. I remember as a kid hearing What You Know About That all over the fucking place. And mind you, I'm living in Iowa, so I'm not in Atlanta like I am right now. I was in Iowa hearing this. And then I remember hearing the Justin Timberlake My Love record with T.I. on it as well, which was fire as fuck. I'm just saying all this to say a lot of people have revisionist history, and a lot of people just to downplay an artist because they like a certain different artist, they'll shit on another artist's catalog or talk shit about them. And for me, it's been the hardest because I love T.I. Like I said, on my phone, I got records that are mixtape records that what's the Fuck the City Up mixtape. He's got a few records on there that I put specifically because it's not on streaming services. Yeah, Fuck the City Up. I have Oh Yeah with Trey Songz, Fuck the City Up, the title track, Hot Wheels on Purpose, Harry Potter. There's a lot of mixtape records from T.I. and just records that aren't, on streaming that I've really loved from T.I. And T.I. even mentioned this, the Active record with Kevin Gates was fire. He dropped that in 2023, and I thought T.I. was going to have his run because that record's fire, but people slept on it. I don't know why. If you haven't heard that T.I. Active with Kevin Gates, go check that out. I think it's amazing, and even T.I. mentioned it, and I'm glad he did because that is an underrated track. But I say all that to say I'm a huge T.I. fan, so for me to have to, with this thing that's going on with T.I. and 50, I had to essentially pick a side, and obviously I'm a side with 50. 50 to me is my favorite of all time. But I had to, in the process, not had to, but, sometimes you got to downplay, T.I.'s shit. But I didn't really do that. I still gave him props and said, I think he has the best 3-album run with the back-to-back years, 2006, 2007, 2008. And I will continue saying that. It's just unfortunate that people, really, really disrespect somebody's catalog or somebody's history of what they've done in music because they either want to push a narrative or they're defending their favorite at that time. Like me, example, defending 50 because that's my favorite, me having to go at T.I.'s music. But I didn't really disrespect T.I.'s catalog. I think, like I said, man, I listen to so much of his music, man. He's usually my top 10 listened to all the time. He's my top 10 favorite. I don't know where I have him ranked, but he's in the top 10 for me. I think, T.I.'s had a more consistent catalog than a lot of artists, but 50's at a different level. Let's be 100% honest here. And I think I saw somebody on Reels mention this. He was looking at the numbers, right? And T.I. had released 540 songs in his career because he has 10, 11 albums out versus 50 Cent's 5 albums. And then 50 released 200 songs. So T.I.'s got 300 more songs and is still lower in streams, matches him in number 1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, but he's got more songs on the Billboard charts, just more, not number 1s or top 10s or just songs entering the chart because he's released more albums. So it makes sense, right? You release more albums, more music is out there, so you're going to hit the charts. But in terms of streaming and numbers, 50 washes him. And I know people are going to be a Versus isn't about that, but to a certain extent it is because you got to battle somebody that's your level. And I'm not talking about skill. I'm just talking about notoriety, popularity. Like imagine, this is what and I'm not trying to disrespect T.I. when I say this, but this is like 50 going up against, or this is like T.I. going up against, and this is going to be fucked up for me to say because I fuck with this art. Actually, let me see. This is like T.I. going up against Chingy, right? Chingy had a couple of hits, but Chingy's catalog, come on. The guy's like, he had Right There, he had Holiday Inn, he had Pull Me Back with Tyrese, he had One Call Away. That's it. We know T.I. has more records, more stuff. So, like, it just, T.I. is here versus Chingy. Like, he's way higher up than Chingy. And then 50's way higher up than T.I. in terms of, like, notoriety, celebrity, impact, everything you can think of, man. Through social media and just kind of talking with people, like people have revisionist history. And the thing is with music is that people the problem with music is it's about your feelings. It's about how you feel about music, about a certain artist's music and where you were at that moment when that artist released that song or that album. And that's why it means to you more than any other artist, right? Like if there was a moment in my life where I was dating this girl who I was madly in love with, and Fetty Wap came out with Trap Queen, all these love records, and Fetty Wap to me was the hottest shit at that moment because it reminds me of that moment in my life where I was dating this girl. I was having the best time of my life at that time in 2015. That's why I had that connection with Fetty Wap, but I can't be like, oh, because I have that connection with Fetty Wap and I feel like his music is great because that moment in my life it made great. Oh, he's, he beats every artist because I just feel his music's better. Like an opinion is an opinion at the end of the day. We got to look at the actual facts, which is the numbers. And I know people don't like that. They're like, oh, why you bring a number into this? It's like, numbers shouldn't dictate things. And, here's the arguments that people use for this, right? This is the arguments that people use. They say like, okay, so I'm going to use 50 Cent as an example because I know his number's the best. So let me just use him as an example because it's easier. So I'll bring up 50's numbers and be like, hey, all these records, all this stuff sold, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Somebody who's not educated, and I genuinely mean this is somebody who just doesn't or is not educated in hip-hop history. They'll be like, well, MC Hammer went diamond. Why isn't MC Hammer at the top of the list? He sold a lot of records. There's a huge difference between the two. And if you can't see this, then either one, you're just being a hater, or two, you're just stupid. There's no in between there. And if you're just being a hater and trolling, whatever. But if you're genuinely stupid and can't see the difference between those two artists, then I don't know what to tell you. MC Hammer, the reason why his album even went diamond is because back then, they didn't sell singles. Back then, in order to get a song you really liked, you would have to purchase the full album. I'm a kid when this was still a thing, and I remember this. Steve Jobs introduced iTunes and had to fight with labels because Steve Jobs introduced the idea that, hey, let's individually sell songs. That was it was in 2001. He had to fight labels because labels were like, fuck no. Why let people choose records? Why not sell the whole album? But Steve Jobs was like, listen, this is going to sell more for certain songs and it's going to do better. It's going to allow people to have more selective choice. And at the time, he presented this because Napster and all those bootlegging websites were stealing music and they had to figure out something to do. And people were tired of spending $15, $20 for a shitty artist's CD with only one good song on it. So Steve Jobs introduced that to labels to try and save them. Labels were against it at first, but then eventually he convinced them. And that was the new model where you could individually select songs. The singles, though, the hit singles were $1.29, and the regular songs were 99 cents if you wanted them. Or you could just flat out purchase the full album. It's up to you. But before then, you would have to purchase the full album. So that's how MC Hammer did 10 million records on his album. Because Can't Touch This was the only good record that people liked. And if people say, well, that's not true, what if they like the album? You can look at streams. Legitimately, MC Hammer, Can't Touch This record, is almost at 1 billion streams and almost at 1 billion views on YouTube. Very close, like at 900 million. Then you look at all of his other songs. He's got one other song that's at 22 million. The rest are barely cracking a million or barely cracking 500,000. That tells you right there in those numbers that, look, he's got one song and maybe a little one that does 22, 23 million, which is not bad. That's it. That's it. So you can't compare that to 50, who you go right now in his numbers, and he's got like 30, 40 records. Actually, I think he's around 40 to 50 records that have done over 100 million streams, 100 million. You have five now that have surpassed a billion and one that surpassed 2 billion. So that comparison doesn't make any sense. And obviously 50 had more hits with The Massacre and had more hits with Curtis and had a hit with Before I Self-Destruct with Baby by Me. So that comparison is just, it's either somebody trolling and hating or somebody that just doesn't know the history of music, period. And then there's another debate that people throw, as an argument about record sales, right? They'll say, well, McDonald's sold a lot of burgers. That doesn't mean that they're good. So you could sell a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean that it's good. McDonald's sells a lot of burgers. Well, here's the difference in that. And I hope somebody can actually understand where I'm coming from here. Because this is so simple to me. You're comparing McDonald's, which you can read the ingredients on the burgers, like factual facts that the food is bad for you. Whereas music, a song, there's no ingredients. It's what you like, what you feel. It's an opinion. That's the difference. That's the difference. One is an opinion. It's a feeling that you don't like this album, you don't like this artist, you don't like this song. And McDonald's is a fact that it's bad food. You can look at the ingredients. You can see 900 calories for one fucking burger is horrendous. I don't know how many grams of fat, how much sodium, all that. You can factually see it's a bad thing. With music and songs, you can't just factually see it's bad. Even songs that underperformed, to some people, they're actually amazing songs. At the end of the day, music is opinion. But the only thing that we can debate factually is the numbers. Because I had gotten into an argument with somebody about AO technology. I think somebody said that 50's music was trash by the time Curtis came out. And I was like, you think the album is trash. That's your opinion. But you can go at the numbers and look that daily there are a lot of people selecting songs off of Curtis that they enjoy. AO Technology gets 500,000 plays every single day on Spotify. And then there's somebody else clowning saying, oh, who cares that it gets 500,000 plays? That's nothing, LOL. And then I literally put up all of T.I.'s catalog and said he barely cracks 350,000 on one song and plays every day. Barely. Barely got there. So 500,000 plays, and that's actually 50's 20th, 30th song that does that. So that means 500,000 people every day wake up, go on Spotify, and click play on AO Technology. That is a huge, huge thing. That's not just it's a bad song. There's clearly people out there that like it. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you love the record or hate it, it's there. And then somebody threw Macklemore at me and was like, well, look at Macklemore. He does streams. And I'm like, yeah, do I like Macklemore? No, I don't. I think he's a garbage artist. No disrespect. I don't listen to Macklemore. But for me to deny and be like, people in the world don't listen to him, he's a nobody. No, legitimately, there are people that wake up and decide, hey, whatever song, I don't know any of his music, Thrift Shop, wherever that record is. They decide to play that song and they enjoy it. Who are me, even with my followers, or you or anybody, to say what's trash and what's not and what's this and that? We're all ants. One person, unless we all come together. At the end of the day, I'm an ant at the end of the day. In this big-ass world, it's one opinion is me. Same with you. Same with that other person. It's one opinion. Even if you gather 100,000 opinion and say 100,000 people dislike this song, there's 8 billion people in the world. 100,000 ain't shit. That's literally 0.001%. It's nothing. So I'm saying all this to say, just because you dislike, for me, for example, I really don't find Jay-Z's music to be that great. I'm not saying he's I'm not going to ever disrespect him and say he's a trash artist, because he's not. But there's a few cool Jay-Z records that I like. And, some albums I enjoy here and there. But I don't really see the craziness. But if the numbers are showing that everybody's bumping Jay-Z every single day, then, hey, people like him, man. It doesn't matter what I say at the end of the day. And that's where I get into these arguments with people where I'm like, You not liking something doesn't automatically just translate to the whole world not liking it. There's no correlation there. And when somebody says something's trash, you throw the numbers up. The reason why you throw the numbers up is because you say it's trash, but other people are still listening to this and bumping it and enjoying it. And that's just the reality of the situation. And people just can't, I go off of reality. I don't go off of, my feelings on songs and what I feel a certain song is. Now, do I have my opinion? Yeah. There's certain album songs from 50 I think are completely trash. Like with that Animal Ambition title song. It is horrible. It's one of 50's worst songs ever. But Zach, shout out to you. I hope you're listening to the podcast. But he responded like, you're going to eventually like that record, Quake. It's a good song. I like it. So he likes it. I think it's completely trash. If he said, hey, it's a good record, I like it, and he showed me numbers that people were bumping every single day, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I just don't like it, but other people seem to like it. It seems to be a good song for him. I mean, what do you want me to do at that point? I can't refute that. And that's the thing. When somebody throws a fact at you, you can't just deny it because you don't like the album. So you're just gonna be like, nah, it's fake, it's boosted. I don't you can't, that's a dumb, there's no point arguing with that person because they just hate that artist, or they have so much hate, they just deny the facts. And that's where the problem comes in with debates, is people will just deny the facts because they don't like something. For example, people say, hey, 50 has a short-lived career and he had a huge peak, but then crashed quickly. Hey, that's a fact. There's nothing I can deny about that. You show the numbers to me. Before I Self-Destruct, didn't really sell that well compared to Curtis, Massacre, and Get Rich or Die Trying. That's just the reality. By the time Animal Ambition came out, it didn't sell really anything. That's just the reality. The numbers are there to prove that. Animal Ambition didn't have a single top 40 or top 10 hit at all. Before I Self-Destruct, did well with Baby by Me, and it's still doing well. Baby by Me, at 500 million, about to reach streams, so it's constantly getting streamed. But Before I Self-Destruct also leaked 1 month ahead of time, so it did affect somewhat the sales. But regardless, in 50 standards, Before I Self-Destruct did not come anywhere close with Curtis, Massacre, and Give It Your Die Trying. That's a fact. I can't debate that. I can say, oh my God, I love Before I Self-Destruct. I think it's the best album of all time, and all this and all this. But clearly, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It's not that album that people are going crazy over every single day. That's just the reality. Same with Animal Ambition. So I don't debate that. I don't if you say, hey, 50's career fell off after Curtis, and Before I Self-Destruct really wasn't that. I mean, fell off on 50 standards, yes. But, Baby by Me was a hit. Whether, you like it or not as a record, it ended up being a hit. And then 50 got another hit with I'm the Man later down the line. But did 50 to his standard fall off? Yes, of course. There's no denying that. Another thing, people say Jay-Z had a long career. His longevity is unmatched. I agree. There's proof in that. The proof is there. This is my point, is there is proof of Jay-Z having longevity. All of his albums went number one. All of them went platinum. And he managed to maintain throughout all these years to remain relevant musically. Besides, obviously, these past, after the 444, he hasn't dropped shit in a long time. So musically, he hasn't been relevant in a long time. But still, the time that he was very active, he was relevant. Not dominating. That's one thing I can prove with facts, is that he never dominated ever a single year. He was like the third or fourth best or biggest at the time. But still, he had longevity. At the end of the day, you can't debate that. It's there. The numbers are there. The proof is in the pudding. Doesn't matter what artist it is. Doesn't matter what the situation is. I can acknowledge, even with me not liking Jay-Z, that he had longevity. Shit, I can acknowledge that Rick Ross, and I'm the person that criticized Rick Ross, that I was bumping Rick Ross at certain points because I was like, this guy was just making great music. Now, did he dominate with numbers and charts? No. But, that's just more of my opinion. There's certain moments where I enjoyed a Rick Ross. But that's what I'm saying. People will say you're this, you're that, but they can't even, if I present them a fact, they just can't handle it. They'll just yell and say names and disrespect. That's when you know somebody lost the debate, is when they attack you as a person. They don't discuss the actual topic. They'll just be like, oh, you're a nut hugger, you're this, you're that, you're dick rider, whatever you want to throw, because they can't, you present to them a fact and it's oh, I don't believe that. I think bots are doing it. That's really what the conversation is. You really think Interscope is willing to spend money to bot 50's music? Come on. After all these years, they're going to lose money doing it at this point. Like, it doesn't make any damn sense. And if a song jumps, like, here's where I would see a bot, right? Let's just say AO Technology is doing 500,000 listens every single day. And all of a sudden, the shit jumps to like 2.3 million. Unless like an event happened where that song was like on the Super Bowl or some crazy shit. That's like weird. That's like activity that doesn't normally happen. Then I would be like, it's botted. But you got to think, even in pure album sales, there were moments where albums were being caught bought. Birdman got caught buying Lil Wayne's The Carter 4 to try to push it past 1 million copies. So it's there, but you can't fake that. You can only fake to a certain amount, right? You can fake 20 to 30% of those numbers, but you can't fake it all. Like, let's be real here, guys. Let's not I got into this, the whole conversation. The reason why I want to talk about this is because it's just been interesting seeing the TI versus 50 debate and seeing how people kind of diminish people's careers, whether it's TI, whether it's Lil Wayne, whether it's 50, whether it's Eminem. Hell, even Jay-Z, there's been conversations of just shitting on Jay-Z. And I'm like, dude, you guys were you guys even alive when this stuff was happening? Or were you guys even like in tune with hip hop at the time? Or how old were you guys? I was a kid and I was seeing this shit. I remember Jay-Z Dirt Off Your Shoulder when that record was hot to me as a kid. I was 8 years old bumping the shit out of that record. I loved Dirt Off Your Shoulder as a kid. That's one of the records I always remember playing on BT Rap City. And it was just a dope ass song. I remember G-Unit, with Stunt 101 and all these records. And then I would see Dirt Off Your Shoulder on the countdown. I would love that song. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it since we're not much news is happening. I was like, why not, go on a little rampage or rant. Let me know if you guys enjoy these type of things, man. Sometimes I like to talk about just random stuff like this. And it's interesting conversations that I notice. But let's get into the news finally.